Dr. Jame.
Hi.
Hi.
We're Group B, right?
Yeah.
And this is the wrap up of our London experience and interdisciplinary course.
This is Alicia Bailey.
Yeah, Alicia.
I'm Shanice Anderson.
Sydney Sola, Combi.
Sienna Bride.
So we're first going to talk about what we thought were the differences and the similarities between U.S. and UK healthcare system.
So, I unfortunately didn't get to go on the London trip, but from my research and throughout things I've learned in this course, there are some similarities between our healthcare system and what the NHS has going on. But there are definitely a lot of bold differences. And so the NHS, which is the national healthcare system, the healthcare system that's employed by our allies, the United Kingdom, they operate under the premise and belief that healthcare should be a right and not a privilege, which is kind of the opposite of what we do here at the U.S.
Right.
And so healthcare is offered to all of the citizens of the UK, and it's publicly funded and free at the point of access. So that money, however, the money that's budgeted from the government comes from the taxes that the citizens are paying. And so in my opinion, one reason why I feel like we will have a difficult time implementing a system like that is because Americans just have a problem with high taxes. We had a whole revolt about taxes, like the Boston Tea Party, history 101. We just don't like paying taxes, especially our 1%. Mm-hmm. And the 1%, are the ones that hold the power and that are making
all the money.
The regulations and the legislation and, shaping our economy. And so if they're not trying to pay taxes from their income, then, I just feel like that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks. And so,
I also think that we are money hungry, so that's why we have all the different insurances company.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to compete with each other to see who can make the most money.
Yeah. And then
You want to talk about the similarities?
oh yeah. So a positive. Well, let's just do the differences. All the way through.
Yeah.
So a positive difference, as far as the U.S. versus the U.K. is that they have extremely long wait times to see their general practitioners because
healthcare is free.
right, it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to see your general practitioner, and then it can take around 6 weeks to see a specialist, and that time can vary depending on what city you're in and all that good stuff. And so also two other differences is that public spending in the U.S. is higher, despite the fact that everyone isn't covered. And then another difference is that private spending in the U.S. is higher. But that allows Americans to be able to enjoy better access to medical specialists, high-tech surgeries, cutting-edge therapies, and all that stuff. And so as a result, our mortality rates following comparable events like U.S. and U.K. tend to be a little bit better here.
And I think that the reason why is probably because of we have the access, like you said, that they have a longer wait, whereas it's us, we can go into the doctor office and can be seen in 30 minutes, whereas they might have to schedule an appointment. So yeah, I guess that's one of the perks that we may have, but I would like to have that free healthcare.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. It hits the ear right.
But then that taxes.
It's a give or take. It's a compromise. And I feel like we have some things that work here. They have some things that work there. Other countries have things if we could just combine everything, it's one perfect, super, it would be dope. And so three of the similarities that we found were that we both have a shortage of various healthcare workers. We both struggle with eradicating things like cigarette smoking, which lead to a lot of the issues that cause people to end up needing healthcare services in the first place. And then we both also have high incidences of homelessness.
Yeah.
So we saw a lot of people smoking in London. We saw a lot of homeless people.
Yeah.
Oh, on the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It felt like we were on the streets of DC.
Yeah.
Just walking in the day and the night, and they had their tent set up. Okay, so y'all want to move on to, so we're going to talk about the similarities and differences that influence the practice. So we had, in week 4, we had different professions. So we did a comparison chart on 6 professions and what it takes in the U.S. versus what type of education level it takes in the UK. So for dietitians, the UK needs an associate's degree from the UK dietitians, or they can also have a BS, a post-diploma, and a master's in order for you to become a dietitian. Whereas for the United States, we just need a master's degree to become a dietitian.
For the physician assistants, for UK, they need a physician associate studies master's, but for just US, they just need a regular master's, probably specializing in something, but it's not so specific as that.
To become a dental hygienist in the United Kingdom, you have to take the appropriate course approved by the General Dental Council, which usually takes a year or 27 months full time. Subjects that are supposed to be studied include anatomy and physiology, preventative dentistry, dental health education, dental pathology, and management and care of patients. Versus in the U.S., it's just an associate's degree.
Why do you think it's such a difference between, like, they seem like they gotta, like, go through the fire to be a dental hygienist, and we just need an associate's degree?
I feel like they gotta go through a fire for a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was actually thinking that maybe it's just they just may have to just take classes. So once you finish high school, you might actually just have to take these classes to become a dental hygienist. Whereas we might have to. It might actually be what and what, because an associate's degree is 2 years, then where a bachelor's is 4, right?
Yeah.
So it may be what and what. It depends. I guess it depends on the coursework.
Don't they get free college over there, or is that
Get free college.
I don't know. I know France does. I mean, if they get free college, then I guess
don't think
the
so.
school.
I think that's something that would have came up.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So for physiotherapists in the UK, they're required to register with the Health and Care Professions Council, complete their Bachelor of Science in Physiotherapy, and earn a full-time degree, which can take 3 years. Part-time, to earn the same degree part-time, would take about 4 to 6 years. And so here in the U.S., physiotherapists are required to complete a 4-year Bachelor of Science program and then matriculate into a master's program. Or they have the option to do a 5-year dual degree program if the institution provides that type of program. And they also need a doctorate.
So pharmacists in the UK, they have to register with the General Pharmaceutical Council, and they can earn an accredited master's degree in pharmacy. Whereas in the U.S., we can do a 6-year doctorate degree total, where you do 2 years of undergrad and then 4 years of your pharmacy doctorate program. Or you can do 4 years of undergrad and then 4 more years of pharmacy doctorate program.
For social workers in the UK, they need a diploma in social work. And for the US, we need a master's in social work. And a major difference is that in UK, most of the social workers work in the government and they're like on high demand. And they usually work with children, health, welfare services. But in the US, social workers usually work with private companies. And they usually specialize in clinical and counseling services.
So that's just a recap of from week 4, we had the 4 professions, which were dietitian, physician assistant, dental hygienist, physical therapist, pharmacists, and social workers. So now it's time to discuss the trip, our London trip. So
what thing that stood out to me and what kind of made me think about where I want to go in pharmacy is when we visit the Museum of the Mind, which really focuses on mental health. And I feel like mental health is something that's not really focused on or talked about that much in the pharmacy field. So I feel like that's something that a lot more pharmacists should look into. Like, we can make a big impact in mental health, like in the retail settings and clinical settings, especially pharmacists that work in like the wards with all the different mental health. So that's something I probably will look into it just because of going to that museum. So, and then physical pharmacist.
Physical therapy. It's interesting that you bring up mental health because working in the clinic, I've seen both my bosses have to really strategically deal with patients, and you really have to know how people think. You really have to understand like how people function, and then you end up. A lot of patients have ended up confiding in the physical therapist. Like it's more than just physical healing because you're there for so long. You come for like 6, 8, 12 weeks, so like you really get to know these people. You really get insight into their problems. So it would be great if we could combine mental health and physical therapy since that relationship is already forming.
And I think I do agree because in a sense of when you're trying to heal, like pharmacists, we prescribe medicine, right? Well, we dispense medicine. And where with physical therapists, you're healing with the body. Everything is your mind. Like, how determined are you going to be to actually, get back into actually using your movements, and with how determined are you to actually inject yourself with the insulin to make sure you stay medication adherence.
Right.
So I think when it comes to your mind and your mental state, that's the way of that's your way of living. Like if you're not tied together here or mentally stable or together, how are you gonna actually function?
Right, and like we talked about earlier, that's all of that, all the work that we're doing as healthcare professionals is improving the patient's quality of life, which in turn, happy life, happy mind. I don't think that's the same, but
right.
you see where I'm going with it.
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so another thing we have to discuss is a historical figure that was mentioned on the trip and how this person influenced healthcare in the United Kingdom and in the world. So just referring to our walking tour of Medical London when we saw the Mary C. Cole plaque, I figured it was important to discuss her contributions to British healthcare and globally. Just a little bit of background, she was born to a Scottish man and a free black woman who was also really well educated in healthcare, and she taught Mary. She passed down that knowledge as she got older. So then she went and she treated cholera. She treated cholera and yellow fever in Jamaica for a few years. Following that, she also dealt with the yellow fever outbreak in Jamaica. Eventually, she did travel to London to help with the Crimean War. Initially, she was rejected because she was a black female in the Victorian era. That wasn't what they were about back then. But the situation got so desperate that they just had to get her to help. There were so many soldiers dying before they even got to the battlefield that it was pretty much a waste. So they had to call her in. The difference, she's often compared to Florence Nightingale, but one of the differences is that Mary C. Cole treated a lot of patients under fire, like on the battlefield, versus Florence Nightingale, who took patients like a little bit further away out of the line of danger. So Mary C. Cole was really about that life, not scared. But her overall contributions to healthcare is that she really opened the door for minorities and further opened the door for women in nursing and the profession as we know it today. She also had a more hands-on practical approach as to where Florence Nightingale was more so about organizing nursing.
One thing that I personally thought, well, it's several things when we were actually on a tour and they told us about Mary C. But I was like, what? First, she's black, and then she was Jamaican, so I was like, okay, cool. And then just listening to your demonstration of what you just said about her is the perseverance of during that time when you as women in the healthcare profession, we always get rejected. We always get second line compared to men, and we still feel that way now. Whether it's doctors, pharmacists, or any physical therapists. So it just seemed that we've been dealing with this for a very long time. It just show you that we have to continue to persevere, and they actually have people before us that has been fighting for the medical healthcare profession. And it's even when we went to the Florence Nightingale Museum, they only had one little excerpt, one little poster board for her, and I'm like, why is it? They always just trying to just put a little small insert, but it's just this is so much more. Especially when it's of our kind.
Especially when you consider that she went to go help these people at her own expense. They didn't send her out there. She gathered her own materials, gathered her own food to go feed these people. She did that all by herself.
She could have got shot.
Right. She could have died. She could have got shot. She actually could have contracted disease or anything along those lines.
So how do you guys feel about working in London? How would you guys adapt?
It'd probably just be mostly trying to adapt to the different system, whereas ours is mostly for profit and for benefit, and we have a lot of competition in U.S. systems. They like a more socialized healthcare system would be like the hardest part to adjust to, but like as far as just patient-doctor relations will probably be pretty much the same, I think.
I think I will probably enjoy working in London. I will probably have to get used to maybe the weather. But I noticed, like, just even with living in London, I can actually see myself living in London because they're kind of healthy with the walking and the bikes, and even with the food. Like, I noticed that when we went to restaurants, like, sides were not included, so you had to purchase your own side. So I think it will probably actually focus on eating smaller portions. But my main concern is probably the pay. So, how do y'all feel about the pay with London?
I think it's very, very interesting. For speaking from the pharmacist perspective, I know over there, like we said earlier, they need to get their master's, and so they don't need a doctorate degree, and they make around what $53,000 to $57,000 dollars, whereas in the U.S. we have to earn a doctorate degree, and we're making almost twice that. Not to say that like a living of $50,000 is not a lot. That's a great living, but it's just in comparison to what we're making in the U.S. I feel like it's a big adjustment, and so you would have to like really wrap your mind around that. I personally would just rather stay here and make twice as much doing the same thing.
Right. The only thing that I think that maybe in London, I would love to see was their working hours and working conditions. So based upon like retail setting, like do they close? Do they work 12-hour shifts?
Can they eat lunch?
Yeah, can they eat lunch? We know the working conditions of pharmacists in the U.S., but just to see like how it's there in the retail setting there. But
I actually would not want to work there. Living there is cool, but working there, I feel like because they have such a high amount of patients, I feel like I won't provide the best care for them because I'm just seeing patients like it's like here you get a little bit more time because it's not as many. So that's one reason why I don't think I would want to work in London.
What about you?
I'm not sure if I want to work in London because I just looked at the pay comparison to go from 85 to 27.
Yeah.
That's rough.
That's in pounds.
That's
I
in
think
pounds.
what does pounds mean in?
It might be like double, maybe like still 40.
It's still
It's
cut. It's a cut. But overall, I can say that it's been a good experience just to actually think about, how another country healthcare system is, how they actually work and everything else.
Yeah, like even if London isn't your place specifically, just opening yourself up to the idea that you can go anywhere in the world to make your impact is really important.
Yeah. And speaking of like going anywhere in the world and like dealing with different people, like how would you guys deal with building rapport with a patient who's from a different background than yours? So like our cultural competency stuff.
Well, from what I learned from your class, Dr. John, I would definitely do my research on the culture of the patient, the background, how they communicate within the culture, their family roles, their sexuality, their normal healthcare practices, like what they do within, their little culture. So just so I can educate myself, so I won't say anything wrong or come off rude or just disrespect them.
I do agree. Like we have to stay open, especially if we're going to be working with someone that's from a different culture. We're in a different place, so I feel like that we need to like do our background and our research, and even stay open to what they're. Sometimes you can give them ideas or suggestions based upon our culture or how we do things, but don't force it upon them. It's only an option. Don't try to like you have to do this or they're gonna deter away from that. Okay, well, Dr. John, we want to tell you thank you. We enjoyed this course. We enjoyed working together as a team.
We learned a lot about different, professions, into collaborative practices.
Yes. And, well, we hope to hear your feedback. Thank you.
We also hope for good grades.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Slide in.